Back in 2020, Beijing banned Senator Marco Rubio from entering China, punishment for his criticism of the crackdown on Uyghurs and Hong Kongers. Then Donald Trump made him Secretary of State, which created a problem, because on the 13th of May, Trump was bringing him into Beijing for the state visit. Beijing could have lifted the sanctions or refused him entry. Instead, they did something much stranger. They quietly changed the Chinese transliteration of Rubio's name. The old Rubio, Rubio, disappeared from the domestic press. A new Rubio appeared in his place. If they can't censor you, they'll rename you. It became one of the hottest stories of the summit. And for politically aware Chinese citizens, it was just the latest episode in a much longer drama they have been tracking around the Trump administration. Comedians in China built whole careers impersonating him as a way of expressing a love for America. They notice how often his administration exposes the Beijing regime's absurd performances of freedom. For them, Trump has become a strange diagnostic instrument, a way of seeing their own system and the world more clearly. These are the Chinese citizens most emotionally invested in the health of the American model. They are often called China's liberals. For anyone new here, hi, I'm Infi, a musician and a thinker. I lived in China for nearly 3 decades, building a career across blockbuster films and billion-dollar game studios in Shanghai before I left for the UK. Since 2022, because I performed pro-liberty songs the Beijing regime did not like, I have received warnings from China's Ministry of State Security, the largest spy agency in the world. If I went home today, this video could put me in prison for thought crime. But I stay in close contact with many liberal artists still inside China, and I work with them. So when I talk about China's liberal community, I am not speaking from a distance. Today, I want to talk about the most contentious thing inside the community right now, the Trump phenomenon. Before we go further, the word liberal here needs explaining, because in China, it means something very different from what it means in America. It doesn't carry the progressive baggage it carries in America. It mostly means something older and simpler, the right to criticize and mock power without being punished for it. And on its press, a private life that stays private. The ability to call obvious absurdities absurd. That alone is enough to place you outside the comfort zone of the Chinese state, and to get you vilified by anti-Western ideologues there as a liberal. And that's why China's liberals tend to develop an extremely sharp sensitivity to political theater. They spend their entire lives navigating it. The reason the Rubio story went instantly viral in China was that the solution was so typically top-down and bureaucratic. Nobody, not even the elites inside the system, dared to admit the contradiction openly. They were only allowed to defend it. The day before the summit, a professor from China Foreign Affairs University posted a confident video insisting Rubio would never be allowed into China because Chinese sanctions were disciplined. Pretty on brand for that institution, which trains nearly all the wolf warrior diplomats who keep generating memes online. Then Rubio showed up, the comments exploded with mockery, and within hours, the video was censored to save face for China's ideologue elites, which only made it funnier. If you've heard of the Streisand effect, this is a textbook case. The cover-up ends up more absurd than the original mistake. Then came the second drama. Elon Musk arrived at the Great Hall of the People as part of Trump's delegation, his 6-year-old son beside him in a Chinese embroidered vest. The photos were posted by the exiled Chinese influencer known as Teacher Li. Teacher Li is a Chinese dissident influencer most heavily targeted by the Chinese government anywhere in the world, because his X account, which archives Chinese whistleblowing, ranks among the top 10 globally by traffic. Then Musk replied to his post in Chinese, "My son is learning Mandarin." The reply exploded, 13 million views. Overnight, the topic started trending on Weibo, China's counterpart to X. But nobody who posted about it was allowed to mention who Musk was actually replying to. The whole story was reframed as a generic pro-China celebrity moment. Then censors caught on and started wiping every related post to keep Teacher Li out of domestic awareness. The funniest detail was that sharp-eyed users spotted Musk's IP traffic showing VPN usage, meaning even Elon Musk standing inside Beijing still needed a VPN to reach the outside internet. The whole drama reveals something larger. Even under the most pervasive censorship pressure on Earth, the number of politically aware Chinese citizens yearning for liberty is far greater than outsiders realize. Then there was a welcome ceremony, rows of school children jumping up and down non-stop in mechanical unison outside the Great Hall of the People. They had likely been told to look spontaneous, but it looked nothing like the natural greetings you see in other countries, or the well-organized children's choirs that let kids perform in an aesthetic way. It just looked weird and exhausting for the kids. Netizens couldn't help but compare it to a North Korean-style welcome ceremony. And this part hit me personally, because I was once recruited into that sort of performing arts group in my hometown. Whenever an important official came to town, we'd get pulled out of class for endless boring rehearsals. Sometimes we stood outside for hours waiting for delayed motorcades. Teacher complained, parents complained, nothing changed. Because somewhere up the bureaucratic chain, there was always a vaguely defined leader above making arbitrary demands. And nobody underneath wanted to challenge them, because their promotion depended on obedience. One teacher who trained the children for the Beijing summit later exposed the same problem. He posted that he had been worn out by endless corny rehearsals, constantly revised by the vague demands of the leaders above. Another tiny glimpse backstage. This is what China's liberal citizens noticed first: the endless absurdities of an illiberal top-down system, amplified by the spotlight of Trump's visit. But their fascination with the Trump administration didn't begin with the summit. Long before it, Trump had already become a strange cultural icon inside China. Viral videos of Trump impressions and commentary on his policies are trending unusually high on Bilibili, Douyin, and Rednote. One of the best examples is Ryan Chen, nicknamed the Chinese Trump, a comedian from Chongqing who became massively viral impersonating Trump. He tours Chinese street food stores, neighborhoods, and tourist sites, speaking in exaggerated Trump-style English.
Chongqing is the chili pepper capital of China. They have done a lot of innovation. You know how they do? They turn the chili pepper into something that's really crunchy. It's kind of like potato chips or something. It's really crunchy.
That kind of thing. And at first glance, you might assume this is just another pro-regime influencer. But the deeper story is much more interesting, because Ryan built his career through a genuine love of American values, absorbed from countless pirated copies of American shows. Friends, 2.5 Men, The Apprentice, hours and hours of American comedy. I read his interviews and was shocked. Before going viral globally, he had never even set foot outside China. What gave him such a precise grip on American humor was almost entirely his binge-watching of those shows. That world feels very familiar to me. Growing up in China, we consumed huge amounts of uncensored American culture through piracy. With every Western platform shut down by the government, the desire to connect to the outside world became almost pathological. We crave that kind of cultural product filled with American spirit, fierce meritocracy and irreverence, the freedom to embarrass authority, the freedom to sound unfiltered. And when millions of Chinese viewers share Ryan Chen's videos today, many of them are projecting their admiration onto the idea of America, onto an openness protected by a constitution, things that feel so distant in China. And ironically, shortly after Trump's Beijing visit, he posted a strange video in Mandarin saying he regretted becoming a Trump impersonator. Chinese viewers understood the signal immediately. During politically sensitive periods, creators often receive constant warnings to stay silent. Certain topics suddenly become dangerous, and nobody tells you where the line is. That uncertainty is part of the system. In China, sometimes you don't even need to say anything to get banned. You can simply have the wrong face. There's an opera singer who vaguely resembles Xi Jinping, an entrepreneur with the same problem. Their accounts repeatedly disappear because comment sections fill with jokes the authorities can't tolerate. The state can't censor your face, so eventually it censors you entirely. That is what many of China's liberals inhabit daily, and it shapes what they see when they look across at the West. A hugely lucrative commentary industry built entirely on discussing President Trump, with no punishment attached. They became fascinated by what Trump represented to them, a symbol of unfiltered political speech, because they often care more intensely about that freedom than people who have never had to imagine losing it. That's a netizen response. The more interesting thing is what's happening among serious liberal intellectuals inside China. Take Gao Yu, one of China's most respected journalists, winner of the Courage in Journalism Award and named one of the 50 World Press Freedom Heroes of the 20th century. She has been imprisoned multiple times by the Chinese government for reporting sensitive party information to foreign outlets. She remains under surveillance, stripped of domestic social media access, and barred from leaving China. Yet she still writes on foreign platforms via VPN, speaking up for the plight of Chinese journalists, Tibetans, and Uyghurs. Thinkers like Gao Yu evaluate American politics through a very different lens from Western observers. The central question they ask is simple. Does this make autocratic systems stronger or weaker? That doesn't mean automatic support for his policies. Gao Yu strongly criticized his attempts to defund the media Voice of America. For people like her, trapped behind the Great Firewall, overseas Chinese media like VOA remains a lifeline. But on foreign policy, many thinkers like her viewed Trump's pressure against autocratic regimes very differently. When US special forces captured the Venezuelan dictator Nicolas Maduro and freed hundreds of prisoners of conscience, Gao Yu framed it as part of a global push against dictatorship. She interpreted Trump's pressure on the Iranian regime the same way, a steady pushback against Beijing's strategic partner, a regime that has caused tens of thousands of protesters' lives in recent months and financed terror across the world for 4 decades. What mattered to her was the knock-on effect on the autocratic alliance. She observed that Beijing was forced to back away from Iran after Chinese ships were attacked and largely blockaded by the Iranian regime. She noticed that the US under Trump became the largest producer of oil and gas in the world, with GDP per capita now around 7 times China's. With half of China's own energy supplies blocked, Beijing was pushed into buying more oil from the US. For Gao Yu, all of this added up to one thing, what she read as a serious deterrent against Beijing's plans to invade Taiwan. She also measures Trump's foreign policy against the alternative. She watched previous administrations lift sanctions while Western institutions failed to push back, often out of fear of being labeled Islamophobic. In her telling, this strengthened both Islamist hardliners and the global autocratic alliance, and the hope for freedom in China faded. Thinkers like Gao Yu are not idealizing Trump personally. They are speaking from years of watching the alternatives up close. Their perspective comes from survival, not tribalism. That distinction matters. The same complexity appears in debates around immigration. There's a popular myth online that people in China naturally support strict immigration control because China itself is culturally homogeneous. And it's true that China has granted fewer permanent residency in the past 2 decades than the US grants in 4 days. No wonder Westerners like to compare their own immigration issues against China's. Look at the British comedian who amplified the myth in a viral video.
Everything here is a little bit too Chinese. I don't eat noodles. We're going to need pie and mash, ham, egg and chips. I mean, you need to cater to me, yeah? No? I don't think you understand. I'm not from here, okay? I left the UK because I didn't like it, all right? So I need you to change everything to make it feel like it's the UK, yeah? Still no, is it?
But many Chinese liberal thinkers know that myth is a little misleading, and they argue the issue from a different angle. Take Wang Jianxun, a popular legal professor based in Beijing, who was educated at Indiana University, returned to China hoping constitutional reform was still possible. Then Xi Jinping came to office and shut that conversation down. Institutes were dismantled, writers were censored. Wang and his fellow scholars were forced to publish their work on these topics in Taiwan. On an island with an ethnically Han majority, their writing gained enormous popularity, and then spread back into China. Then, in 2023, one of these books' main publishers, Fu Cha, was arrested during a trip to Shanghai and secretly sentenced to 3 years for inciting separatism. For Wang, the collapse of constitutional debate inside China became deeply personal and urgent. And when he discusses immigration and social cohesion in America, he frames it through the defense of the constitutional model, not ethnic nationalism. He laid out his full argument in one of his books, American Order, published in Taiwan by the arrested publisher I just mentioned. His core argument is simple. A constitution only works when the society underneath it shares enough cultural and moral common ground to keep it running. Mass immigration without time for newcomers to absorb that common ground, he says, weakens the foundation even if the legal text stays the same. He also points out that America is already one of the most open countries in the world to legal immigrants, far more open than Switzerland, Japan, and of course China. Insisting on orderly entry is not the same as closing the door. This matters for his advocacy in China because it works as a mirror. Wang spent years trying to cultivate the cultural soil and shared civic trust that constitutional reform depends on. even as the regime dismantled his work from the top down again and again. His writing on Trump's policy applies the same logic in reverse. America gave him his academic rigor and his entire vocabulary of constitutionalism. But even a country with the ideal constitutional model can lose it if shared civic trust collapses too fast from below. And once that trust is gone, states increasingly fall back on coercion outside the rule of law. China's liberal citizens know exactly where that road ends. They've already lived inside it. To be clear, China's liberals are not a unified movement. They disagree about Trump's policies, but what connects many of them is something deeper. They have all spent years inside a society where political performance has replaced political integrity, a society in which language becomes carefully managed theater, and everyone learns to read between the lines. And because of that, they often notice warning signs earlier than people who still assume freedom is permanent. That's why so many of China's liberals remain emotionally invested in what happens to free expression in the West. They know what the set looks like from backstage. And sometimes when they look at the West now, they see parts of the stage starting to look familiar. If you found this analysis helpful, do consider subscribing. And if you want to understand the deeper systems shaping modern China, I made a previous video about China's exam-oriented education system and how it helped create both China's rise and many of its contradictions. You can watch it next. Thank you for watching. Stay well.